Whoa! Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. Sorry about that. I didn't hit the mic button, so it wasn't on. But hey, welcome to the morning devotion. My name is Bo Willette. Very French name. Bo Willette with O-U-E-L-L-E-T-T-E. Spelling. So quite the spelling to that name. Yep. Not too many people are used to that kind of French name where there's a lot of spelling. But anyway, a big hockey guy, love ice hockey a lot, played a lot of ice hockey, got a lot of concussions from ice hockey too. So I'm going to be in the middle of Hosea today, 7 and 8. We're going to read this. It's going to kind of remind us of probably chapters 5 and 6. So if you were with me with 5 and 6, it's going to sound really familiar, 7 and 8. It's kind of the same kind of dialogue, same, or if you will, kind of diatribe. You know, the deity is going at it, letting people know, hey, where you're really at. And again, these are always kind of scary, I think, to us humans when Yahweh, you know, the God of the Bible, actually is revealing truth to and what I mean by truth is kind of the truth of the human condition, kind of where we're at as far as a humanity goes. You know, sometimes we think we're doing pretty good as humans, but then, you know, the deity speaks and you go, ooh, maybe I'm not doing so good at all. And anyway, it should lead us to want to be saved. That's the whole point. It should lead us to the place of knowing that we need saving. We need a remedy. We need a, if you will, a doctor. And this is why Jesus comes into the world, right? To seek and save that which is lost. I have not come for the healthy, but for the what? The sick. So, yeah, there needs to be an understanding of our sickness. So it says in 7, I want to heal Israel, but its sins are too great. Samaria is filled with liars. Thieves are on the inside, and bandits on the outside. Its people don't realize that I am watching them. So we can kind of get in modes, you know, where maybe today I think like, oh, God doesn't see me. But no, just like as in the days of Hagar, God sees. You know, when you read the events of Hagar and Ishmael, you know, God is addressed as the God who sees. Yeah, God sees. And it says, their sinful deeds are all around them, and I see them all. The people entertain the king with their wickedness, and their princes laugh at their lies. They are all adulterers, away aflame with lust. They are like an oven that is kept hot while the baker is kneading the dough. An oven that is hot, you know, you get the idea that they just, their lustful inclinations are just always there, always brewing. Now, this makes a lot of sense to us who have really struggled with sexual lust and sexual immorality of our day, especially through avenues like pornography and things like that. That's so prominent today. It's free. For those that don't know, we have had a free experiment, a free pornography experiment in the United States for quite some time now. And, you know, that's pretty crazy, right? Because most of us growing up, we had little corner stores in our neighborhoods, and you couldn't get items, you know, adult items. They were behind the counter and they were covered and all that stuff. But you were certainly a curious kid when you would go in there. Why? Because human beings are fascinating. Why? Because we do a few things as human beings. We eat, we drink, and we reproduce. So wanting to see sexual things isn't odd at all. What's odd is the massive distribution of all of it. That's what's odd, is that to see so much available everywhere at all times is quite a overwhelming particular to our culture and our world today. But, you know, for those of us who have dealt with that and who deal with that on a daily basis, we can understand this kind of, you know, heating up where there's this, you know, always ready, right, to engage. But it doesn't just happen to people that are deal with sexual immorality. There's a lot of people that do this with many areas of their life. They're always ready to pounce. They're always ready to get angry. They're always ready to manipulate. They're always ready to control. They're always ready. It's like a constant ready, ready, ready place. And that's what it's talking about, right? Always ready. The king's palaces. God sees what's going on in the government. He sees what's going on in those secret meetings of government officials and what they do and their sexual lives. And not just their sexual lives, but all kinds of things that they do in their life. But he knows that. And we live in a day and age where there's a lot of videos on what kind of people in the high ups do in secret. And some really, really sad things to read about. Just real, some people put it in the realm of conspiracy theory. But you know what? It's been going on for a long time. Look at what was going on in Israel, right? God's people were doing a lot of funky stuff in the government. And it says their hearts are like an oven blazing with intrigue. It says the plot smolders through the night, and in the morning it breaks out like a raging fire. Burning like an oven, they consume their leaders. They kill their kings one after another, and no one cries for help. They murder one another. They not only lust after everything, they're desirous, covetousness, but they just want to kill each other too. There's no love in the system, man. There's no love there. You know, this is kind of one of the things you kind of have your what is it? Your balloon popped when you grow up. Is, you think there's, kind of that love, in your crew. You think there's love in your thing, but there might not be much love at all. Maybe there's a lot of hate. Maybe there's a lot of spite. Maybe people are trying to get at you. Maybe people are trying to keep you down. There could be a lot of that goes on in your group, as you're growing up. Sometimes we think everybody's your friend, but maybe not everybody is your friend. Notice that's how it is in this government world, right? Dog eat dog. It really just makes my attitude just be in check. It says the people of Israel mingle with godless foreigners, making themselves as worthless as half-baked cake. Man, you guys are like a half-baked cake. Man, you guys aren't done at all. And you guys keep going off to someone else. Keep going to somebody else instead of to Yahweh. Worshiping foreign gods and sap their strength, but they don't even know it, right? It's kind of sapped them. It's made them soggy, right? You know that term, right? You go to the gym and someone says to you, hey, you look kind of soggy, right? You're like, what? Because you're trying to get all tight and fit, right? But, that's, they're half baked. And it says, their hair is gray, but they don't realize they're old and weak. Their arrogance testifies against them. Yet they don't return to the Lord, their God, or even try to find him. The people of Israel have become like silly, witless doves, first calling to Egypt, then flying to Assyria for help. But as they fly about, I will throw my net over them. I will bring them down like a bird from the sky. I will punish them for the evil that they do. I guess you can't get away from God too much, right? The net's are going to get, thrown on you, and, he'll bring you back. But notice the idea is, we go to other things, right? We go to other things instead, especially, for counsel. Instead of going, hey, what does God's word say? Let me go to that. A lot of times we want to go to something else or someone else and hear from them. What sorrow awaits those who have deserted me. Let them die, for they have rebelled against me. I wanted to redeem them, but they have told lies about me. They do not cry out with me with sincere hearts. Instead, they sit on their couches and wail. They cut themselves, begging foreign gods to grain and new wine, and they turn away from me. So they've even gone to like so extreme. It's like in the days of Elijah, the worship of Baal, where the priest of Baal are cutting themselves, there on Mount Carmel, cutting themselves, waiting for their gods to respond. And Sometimes we're doing that. We're doing extreme measures, waiting for God. God, I'm going to show you, how much, I deserve to be saved. I'm going to, flog myself. Oh, I'm so bad. Oh, I'm so this. Oh, I'm so that. Oh, really trying to get a response. Have you ever done that to your kids, where you said, oh, I've done this out of the kindness of my heart. Don't you know how much I love you? Don't you see just how much I care? And if you take a step back, you go, ooh, that is some manipulation, right, going on. Yeah, you're trying to get a response from your son or daughter, and it's got to be the right response, or else you're just going to keep putting it on thick. Right? Oh, throw that guilt trip out there, kind of thing. Well, these guys are begging their foreign gods to do a work. Oh, God of Baal, do your work. I'm going to cut myself and show you. I'm going to give my kids to the altar of Molech and sacrifice my child. And then you'll know just how much I love you. Don't you get the idea that God wants to redeem, but we just won't what? Turn towards him. Right? So God's there saying, hey, I'm at the door, I'm knocking, but you gotta what? Be willing to open the door. You have to look to me. And he says, I trained them and made them strong, yet now they plot evil against me. They look everywhere except to the Most High. They are useless as a crooked bow. Their leaders will be killed by their enemies because of their insolence towards me. Then the people of Egypt will laugh at them. Hey, all the people that they're running to, they're going to see that they too have feet made of clay, and they're not going to hold you up. We always have to look at who we're going to ultimately, and ultimately we have to get our emotional well-being from God, because God doesn't change. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God is the one who can sustain perfectly and wholly, meaning completely. But if I go to my wife, if I go to my daughter, to my son, to my pastor, my blah, 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 and I try to get everything from them, it ain't going to work. It's not going to suffice. It's not going to make you well. You really got to check, where you're going. Why you're talking the way you're talking to your spouse, why you're talking the way you're talking to your kids, that might be adults by now, but why are you doing that? Are you manipulate them? Are you trying to get them to feed into something, some fear thing, some insecurity thing that's in you? You really got to look at that, because what we're doing is, we are going to other things instead of to the living God and saying, God, help me with my fear. Help me with my insecurity. Help me, Lord, to walk in love towards people, not to seek my own, as love does not seek its own. It is not puffed up, right? It is not boastful. It's not proud. It's patient. It's kind. It doesn't seek its own, right? So help me not to seek my own, but help me to live in a way where I'm not manipulating. I'm not doing those type of things. I'm not going to Assyria. I'm not going to my Egypt to try to, feel better. And that's what Israel's trying to do, is feel better. What's going to make me feel better? Sometimes it's even substances that we go to that make us feel better. It says, "O people of Israel, do not rejoice as other nations do." This is chapter, I accidentally, let's see, where did I go? Chapter 8. Okay. "Sound the alarm, the enemy descends like an eagle on the people of the Lord. For they have broken my covenant and revolted against my law. Now Israel pleads with me, help us, for you are our God. But it is too late. The people of Israel has rejected what is good, and now their enemies will chase after them. The people have appointed kings without my consent, and princes without my approval, by making idols for themselves from the silver and gold, and they have brought about their own destruction." So even though they worshiped God, they kind of cried out to God with their lips, right? Oh God, we need you. Kind of like maybe what we do in the United States a lot of times, where we kind of cry out to God, and then, but, really do our lives, are we really, really focused on the Lord? That kind of idea. And that's kind of what you're getting in Hosea, where the nation of Israel, the northern nation, northern kingdom especially, has said, oh yeah, Yahweh, you are our God. But yet they still have places of false worship, So it says, O Samaria, I rejected this calf, meaning the capital. This idol you have made, my fury burns against you. How long will you be incapable of innocence? This calf you worship, O Israel, was crafted by your own hands. It is not God, therefore it must be smashed to bits. Right? It's an idol. It's something. It's an image. For they have planted the wind and will harvest the whirlwind. Ooh, man, what a bummer, right? Gosh, how many of us have done that, right? Where we have planted the wind and harvest the whirlwind. Seems like our life is just uncontrollable, right? The stalks of grain wither and produce nothing to eat, and even if there is grain, foreigners will eat it. The people of Israel have been swallowed up. They lie among the nations like an old discarded pot. Again, Yahweh speaks to Israel more hardcore than most people I know. Meaning most people would not talk to Israel or about the Jewish people like this, because they would be deemed anti-Jew or anti-Semitic or something like that. But Yahweh certainly comes at them and judges them and says, hey, you're like this, you're like that, you're like this, and you're like that. And it's pretty hardcore. You're like a discarded pot now, right? Like a wild donkey looking for a mate. You're like a wild donkey that is in heat, wants to do it with Assyria. I mean, that's how hardcore you are, Israel. That's how you are. I mean, could you imagine, someone speaking that way, today about Israel? I mean, that would be gnarly. We'd be like, what are you doing? Like, man, that's a little tough. That doesn't sound very good. But yet Yahweh can do this and judge in a righteous way. And he judges in a righteous way. He calls it for what it is. And sometimes we just really struggle with that. Like, really, when it's really, this is really true. So like a wild donkey, they've gone to Assyria. The people of Israel have sold themselves to many lovers. And that's hardcore, right? They've prostituted themselves out to many people. But though they have sold themselves to many allies, I will now gather them together for judgment. Then they will wither under the burden of the great king. There will be a judgment in Israel. God will judge them for their actions. It says, Israel has built many altars to take away sin, but these very altars became places for sinning. Isn't that a bummer? When the church becomes a place where we don't exercise love, but we exercise lust or greed or envy, hating one another. We're the very place where we should worship God and be in good, healthy fellowship becomes the place of, hating. And this is why in 1 Timothy chapter 2, the writer Paul to Timothy says, I desire that men lift up holy hands without wrath and doubting. I mean, that women adore themselves properly in the church, right? Not trying to, win dudes over, through their dress. That's why Paul does that. He's saying, hey, like in Hosea, let's act properly in the place of worship. So it says, even though I gave them all my laws, verse 12, they act as though the laws don't apply to them. The people love to offer sacrifices to me, feasting on the meat, but I do not accept their sacrifices. I will hold my people accountable for their sins, and I will punish them, and they will return to Egypt. Israel has forgotten its maker and built great palaces, and Judah has fortified its cities. Therefore I will send down fire on the cities and burn up their fortresses. So it's kind of shows to the unreasonableness of us humans. What do we do with all of our intellect? What do we do with all of our understanding, all of our quote scientific, discoveries? What do? We tend to build bigger things and construct stuff, and then we become boastful and prideful, and we think we got it all. Oh, our science is so right on. It's so amazing. And we fail to remember that we're a tiny speck on a tiny speck in a tiny speck in a grand scheme of the galaxies. And that we are just super tiny, whiny, only on this planet a short period of time. For some reason, that what is so sure has left our minds, and we now just are consumed with what we build, of what we can make. And that's what Israel has, that's the way they've gone, is they've constructed their cities, they've constructed their temples, they've constructed their towns, they've built up, they've acquired money, their economics have been great, they're broadening their borders, and they seem to be prospering in so many ways. And yet the message is you guys don't get it, that you haven't used your understanding in the right way. Instead of learning about your creator, you've simply ignored your creator and gone the way of your quote profession. And that sounds so much like today, where people lose sight of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is you're only going to be on the planet a short period of time, and that is it. And so the most reasonable thing to do is to search for truth on if there is an eternal life. That would be the most important thing to do, because after you die, that's it. It is done. And so finding out about eternal life would be the most reasonable thing to do. What would be unreasonable is to boast in something that you built or think it's that great. It's only going to be temporary, and that's it, right? We learned that a lot in the book of Ecclesiastes when we read through that. So, we're going to have to, we all do things, we've all built things, we've all accomplished things, but we have to keep it in perspective. We have to realize that, there's something greater to really know, and that something greater is God. And to come back to a relationship with God, knowing that we are accountable to our Creator. Just as kids are accountable to their parents and people are accountable to their bosses, that we are accountable to the maker of heaven and earth. And not to flee from that accountability, but instead to push into it, to move into that accountability, knowing that God is safe if we go to Him. I tell you, man, it's no fun when you're running from God, right? And you're booking, and He's on your tail, and He's like, no, I'm going to bring you back, but I'm going to judge you, and but it's for your good. It's for your betterment. Just move towards Him, right? So really cool chapters. Hope you guys dug that. We're in the middle of Hosea. We're going to wrap this book up soon enough, so stay tuned, right? So thanks so much for checking out the Devo. Hope you guys got some good stuff out of that. Again, a lot of stuff just about thinking about your kind of how you're living, why you're doing what you're doing, really what is in your heart. You really get the idea that the God of the Bible is really into a relationship and not just into some ceremony. And just remember, when Jesus went to Jerusalem, He wept over it, and He longed to gather the people, right? But they wouldn't have it. They wanted to go their way. Can you see Jesus just weeping over Jerusalem? saying, I long to gather you, but you wouldn't have it. It's just like what Yahweh says here in these passages. I long to gather you. I long to redeem you, but you just would not have it. So Jesus, when Jesus speaks, he's always speaking as God, saying the same exact things that come from Yahweh through the prophets. The same vibe, the same type of language, everything. That's why when they heard Jesus teach, they said, this guy's teaching much different, because he's speaking as though he is the deity. He's saying the exact same things. So everything Jesus says is a claim to God. So when someone says, hey, did Jesus claim to be God? Yeah, every time he spoke. Every time he spoke, he did. Because he spoke as Yahweh. That was the perspective. So in human flesh, of course, as the Son. So, yeah. And I hope that helps. So we will talk to you guys later. You guys have a good day, okay? Bye-bye.